Blessings, family. Blessings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Wherever you are in the world, I want to welcome you on behalf of Noble Trinity Media and our African media partner, Adulawo TV. I want to welcome you to the International Book Tour and kickoff for the book Raising Hell by author Najee Ali. We thank everyone for coming out today. And before we bring on Najee, the amazing author, award winning activist, and leader, we have a request for you. Together, family, we can amplify the healing message in the book Raising Hell. We can shine light on social injustice, racial oppression, and the misuse of police power. We ask that in the next 24 hours, you not only purchase your advanced copy of Raising Hell, but that you share the link that we're getting ready to post on social media at nobletrinityenterprises.com. Just send us your email address. You'll be able to sign up on the website. So when the link goes live on Amazon, we want to flood Amazon.com with purchases of Najee's new book. We want to send a message to the world that we believe in justice, that we believe in ending the misuse of police power, and we believe in the message in Najee's book. So, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you post, tell people about this book, family. And please contact us if you have a book club, a fraternity, sorority, church, mosque, elite community organization. Get in touch with us because we know you want to host Najee for a book signing event. We speak number one on the New York Times bestseller list. And if you already have the book, if you know, because the book was out previously, Najee has added new stories to it. So it's not the same book. You're going to get some of his incredible firsthand testimony. But anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself because we're getting ready to tell you all about it in just a minute. So I just want to welcome you again. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the window. I see you, family. Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. First of all, Najee, welcome to the window.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sister TaShia. It's an honor, a privilege, and just a blessing to be on this platform with you. And I want to thank you for being my friend for years and all
Hmm.
your hard work that you have put into this project in helping me tell my story the right way. So I appreciate you, and it's just a privilege. To be your friend. Thank you, sister, very
Oh,
much.
say, my brother. Well, look, what else can we say? Let's dive in, family. Let's just dive in. First of all, Najee, thank you for those kind words. I receive it. As I always say, I'm trying to be like you when I grow up, big brother. But congrats on writing a historic, thought provoking, world changing book. Your book, Raising Hell, speaks on the real work that goes into facilitating social change. Most of us have no idea what it takes to get legislation passed, a new law approved, or to mobilize thousands, if not millions of people to take a stand against injustice. You have made this kind of work your life. My first question is, what keeps you going while you are facing off, with the horrific crimes of injustice like that of Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, and George Floyd? What inspires you, Brother Najee, to do this work that you've been called to do?
Well, I think what inspires me is the fact that I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors,
Mm.
the fact that they never gave up in fighting for their freedom through slavery, through post Reconstruction, through the birth of the Civil Rights Movement to now, where we're still fighting injustices that our community faces. But at the end of the day, you'll always see, members of our community standing up and fighting back in tradition of our ancestors, whether it be us modeling the heroic efforts of Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Fannie Lou Hamer, Dr. King, Malcolm X, and so many others who have inspired my journey of activism. So I fight in that tradition and in their spirits. So I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors.
Yes, 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 our mighty ancestors. We give homage. You have met Brother Najee and interacted with some of the most influential people in the world. One of them is one of our favorite music families, one of the families that I grew up with, their music. I love their music. And you don't know this story, but I had the opportunity to meet them when I was a little kid, when they
Oh,
were first starting out and performing in Las Vegas. And of course, I was just a fan, not I didn't get to actually talk to them like you did, but I was just one of those girls screaming and then it ended up on the elevator with them by accident. So that's a whole other workshop. But you have had the opportunity to spend time with members of the Jackson family, to visit their home in Gary, Indiana, which of course we share that city because that's where part of my childhood, because my mother taught school in Gary, Indiana. So we have all kind of connections. But you actually got to meet this great, great family and legacy. And you were also part of speaking out against the injustice. We know it's a lot of pressure to be a celebrity and to be a pop, star, a guru. And you stood up for our beloved Michael Jackson when the world was against him. And I know that had to touch his heart to have someone like you who had no benefit, of doing so. You weren't a lawyer, you weren't any of that, but you just, as always, wanted to do the right thing. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like? And you write about this in the book, family. If you don't, when you get this book, you're going to be like, oh my God. But you met them, you know about their lives and their struggles and their victories. What was it like to meet members of the beautiful, rich, iconic legacy of the Jackson family? And what can you share with us that we don't know about them?
well, I'll say this. I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana. And ironically enough, I grew up in the Delaney housing projects in Gary, which was, I would say, 1 minute away from the Jackson's family home on 2300 Jackson Street. And I saw them as a child growing up, listening to their music, dancing to it. So my favorite group growing up was the Jackson Five because they were from Gary, Indiana, our same hometown, and I loved Michael Jackson and his brothers. So I eventually moved to Los Angeles in 1981 and became friends with Norm Nixon, the NBA legend, NBA champion, married to Debbie Allen, one of our country's most dynamic entertainers. So I ended up meeting Jackie and Randy with Norm at a basketball game, and we had a chance to spend some time together at a club after the basketball game. So I shared with them that I'm from Gary, Indiana, also. So they immediately responded very positively because we're from the same hometown, have some of the same friends, and they trusted me because they knew I was friends with Norm and Debbie. So eventually, I met other members of the family as time went on, and eventually had a relationship with some of the brothers. So when Michael was falsely accused of crimes, which those that know him, know of him, and know who he really is, we knew he could never commit. I immediately responded and began to become an advocate for Michael, an organizer on his campaign to fight for his freedom and his justice, and to clear his name of these false allegations that were made against him. So the family saw me on national TV, advocating as a spokesperson for justice for Michael Jackson. I was blessed to organize the Caravan of Love, which was the bus trip, which hundreds of California residents rode a bus to Santa Maria for the opening statements of the trial. And we had a trip to go to Neverland after the day of court was over for Michael. And that's the day for your listeners to know that Michael actually stood on the limousine, waving to the fans, and thanking them for our support for him. And then being at Neverland, having a chance to actually, talk to Michael, where he thanked me, was something that I'll never forget. I had a chance to take my daughter, Jasmine, who was a young girl at the time. So I'll just say this, that for those that don't know, the Jackson family is one of the most nicest,
Mm.
humblest, positive family that you'll ever want to meet. So I'm grateful I had a chance to be a part of history. Grateful to say that yes, I helped Michael when he needed it most. He thanked me. I have photos with him. I was able to take my daughter there to meet the Jackson family, and to this day we remain friends. I had a chance to visit Mrs. Jackson at her house before COVID with my cousin, Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, the former mayor of Gary, Indiana, who's now the CEO of the Chicago Urban League, and talked to his Prince, who was at the house. Blanket was there also. And Mrs. Jackson was just so nice and so sweet. In fact, she took a picture holding my book that I gave her, Raising Hell, the first edition. So it was just a precious moment. And she took me around the house and gave me a personal tour, showing me Michael's memorabilia that she kept in the house, showing me pictures of all her children. And then the moment I remember, for whatever reason, was that when she saw Janet Jackson's picture, she pointed and smiled and looked at it and said, "That's the baby. That's my baby."
Wow.
So that was a very special moment. So the Jackson family, I love them. They're my friends, and look forward to continuing to spend time with the family as time permits.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And thank you, because we know that that walk, being a celebrity, people, you become a target for all kinds of things. And most of us are clueless to the pressure that these individuals live with every day. And, having no privacy, not being able to do something as simple as walk to a park or to the beach or just do the things that we all take for granted, without people swarming on them, and then just the lies and all the stuff that people make up and do for money. So someone like you, having it in your heart to speak up for them, I know that meant the world to them. So thank you for sharing that story with us. In Raising Hell, you also talk about another icon. You talk about and prayers to him. I know that he and his wife were recently ill with COVID, and up to my knowledge, they are out of the hospital and recovering and doing much, much better. But we know that this brother, who you talk about and you share the story of in your book, Raising Hell. By the way, if you're just tuning in, you're watching The Window, and we have the amazing activist and author Najee Ali online with us today. We're celebrating the kickoff of his international book tour, and we're going to go all around the world meeting with people and telling them about the story in of Raising Hell and his incredible and historical story and interactions in fighting for justice. So now I go to the next story, which is about iconic civil rights activist Jesse Jackson, which is one of the stories in the book. Now we know that Reverend Jesse Jackson opened new roads for Black leaders in politics and in the community. He was the first African American to make it right onto the ticket running for president of the United States. And as we all say, we know that saying, because Jesse ran, we had President Obama who won. We're going to talk about him later in the book, in the interview this morning. But you worked alongside Jesse throughout his career, in different points of his career, and at one time in the height of his career. What was it like being a part of those moments? I mean, up for hope, down with dope. Like, I'm gonna, like, that was my era. I grew up. I was inspired by Jesse, and you had the opportunity to work with this brother, to be in his presence. You saw his good, his bad, and you loved him all the same. What were the openings that you saw Jesse create that we are still enjoying the blessings of today? What were those openings?
Well, I'll say that Reverend Jackson is someone whose name I've known my entire life. Growing up in Gary, Indiana, which is essentially right next door to Chicago, it's a half hour away. I can remember as a child listening to the radio, and my grandmother would play Reverend Jesse Jackson's Saturday morning broadcast from Chicago, and Jesse Jackson was essentially my first hero. He was the first black man that I saw on the news and on TV, fighting for civil rights, fighting for justice. So Reverend Jackson, when he announced he was running for the Democratic nomination for president in 1984, I was inspired, and actually, that was the first time I actually registered to vote. Then in 1988, when he ran for the nomination again, I said this time I wanted to do more than just vote for him. I wanted to actually volunteer on the campaign. And ironically enough, in South Central LA, he visited, and I was at the campaign office, and we had to make a campaign stop. So for whatever reason, the campaign manager in LA at the time selected me to ride in the van with Reverend Jesse Jackson and escort him and help him as an aide. So I was like, what? I'm getting ready to ride in the same van with Reverend Jesse Jackson? So I was stunned and actually shocked. But I ended up riding in the van with Reverend Jackson and assisted him. So we had a chance to meet personally then. And as the years progressed, I became an activist in my own right. So Reverend Jackson, whenever he came to Los Angeles, years ago, I would always be with him, accompanying him, be in private meetings with him, and serving as an aide to Reverend Jesse Jackson, who I learned so much from. Grateful to have a friendship with several of his children, Jonathan, Santita, Jesse Jackson Jr., who I love to death. Had a chance to spend some time with him at Jesse Jr.'s home a few months ago, and we talked in the backyard about his father's legacy and the work that Jesse Jackson Jr. is doing now that he's retired from Congress. So, as I said, and I tell people that love Barack Obama as I do, there'd be no President Barack Obama had there not been a Reverend Jesse Jackson running for president twice.
Yes, yes. What an incredible legacy he inspired, and the lessons that we learned. Because again, as you know, the life of an activist, which your book is all about. And I see so many aspiring activists today, and some of them, we know, don't understand really what this walk means. It's not just, protesting or being part of a march. It's about facilitating social change and changing the way things are done and changing the way that, injustices go down in this country and around the world. And I think your work in particular has had a big influence and is making people be held accountable. And I see all the questions, the chat is blowing up. We're going to come to your questions. You're going to get to ask Najee a couple questions, and I want to just welcome all of you. Karen Rich, I see you. Charles Taylor, all of you family, Your World TV on here, House of Pinky, Thelma Craig, Rhonda Kirkendall, all of you who are tuning in, please share the video. We want so many people to get the message of this book and the message behind Brother Najee's work. Speaking of injustice, in the book Raising Hell, you have one story that almost laid me out. Well, a whole bunch of them did, but this one really got me. And it's a story about what happened in America with a 17-year-old boy named Trayvon Martin, who was senselessly murdered while walking home from the store. Najee, you were among the first leaders to mobilize a critical response in the Black community. You helped place Trayvon's case before the mass media in Los Angeles, and your work played a huge role in creating visibility, not just for the Trayvon Martin case, but for violence against Black men across the nation. This led to a light being shined in the American judicial system, who has really, we know, failed to hold perpetrators of this violence accountable. Najee, what do you hope America learned from the death of Trayvon Martin and from all of the positive work that you did to bring this case to justice? Because I know for me, like literally, I heard about the Trayvon Martin when you were protesting in Los Angeles at Leimert Park, and that was one of the marches. I live far away now, but I literally drove in so that I could be there for that particular protest. And there was hundreds of us gathered. You know, when you organized that, it was a very powerful and effective measure against this injustice. But my question is, what do you hope that America learned from the death and the healing? Because you also helped bring healing to the family and the community of Trayvon Martin.
I would think that America needs to realize, understand that they have nothing to fear with young Black males, young Black people who essentially are people who don't deserve to be targeted,
Yes.
racially profiled, stalked, followed, and harassed. That young Black men have a right to wear a hoodie wherever they choose to. And it's something that dawned upon me that Trayvon Martin was essentially racially profiled, stalked, harassed, and murdered by a wannabe cop, George Zimmerman, who, essentially murdered Trayvon Martin for simply walking home in his own neighborhood with a can of iced tea and a bottle of a bottle of iced tea and a packet of what Skittles.
Those famous
So
skits.
yeah,
Yes.
so it was just something that really struck my heart, and it was devastating to hear what happened to Trayvon Martin. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Trayvon's parents, Tracy, his father, and Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon's mother. His parents are dear friends of mine, and Sabrina's, like my sister. I love her. We stay in contact. We see each other from time to time. We text each other, and we're on social media. Always commenting on each other's posts. So they're like my family now, and I give credit to his parents for standing up for their son as they should. But they did it with articulate grace, being articulate. And shout out to Attorney Ben Crump, who put that case on the national scene, along with Reverend Al Sharpton, who used this platform as a national civil rights activist, certainly America's foremost civil rights leader right now during this present time. Not Reverend Jesse Jackson has slowed down due to Parkinson's. So I'm just grateful I had a chance to actually support the family, but also organize LA activists, because I said to myself, whenever an injustice happens elsewhere in this country,
Yes.
LA needs to show up and stand up and show solidarity to let Black people know elsewhere you're not alone. And we may not be in your city, whether it's Minnesota, Louisville, our Florida, but we care, and we'll do what we can to highlight the injustice in our own city and put it out there in the media.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I know, I'm sure that your work had a very key role in facilitating justice, what justice we could get out of that situation, because we were up against, a big system, a system that has been in play for many, many hundreds of years in this country, judicial system that we know often excuses and gives a pass to people who commit crimes against young Black men. And so that struggle continues. And
Well, yes, no, it does continue. And
Yeah.
I'll just say that it was a collective effort. Certainly, we had activists in major cities, whether it was Tamika Mallory, Sister Linda Sarsour back in New York, joining the fight, as well as activists, elsewhere in other cities, big and small. So it was a collective effort
Yes.
that drew attention to the unjust murder of Trayvon Martin. I was just blessed to be in LA, which is the second biggest city in the nation,
Mhm.
in a big major media market, to help put that in the media platforms
Mhm.
as well in Los Angeles by consistently organizing marches and rallies, drawing attention to Trayvon's murder in Florida.
Yes. Creating that visibility is key, and in galvanizing, our community and our allies to support us, and the media to get the word out. And I think, polarizing the injustice, that is so important. And I love that you educate people in how to do that. The people who are part of your group. In the book, you talk about Big Money Griff, who was really close to another member of our family, and so many others in the community. Brother, Donald Bakir, author of the infamous book Crips, and so many others that you've had the opportunity to work with and work with you and support you. And so this is so key, this unity around a cause, that we have to sometimes put our differences aside and come together for the good of the whole. And I really appreciate that you're leading an effort like that. When I first heard about your work, like maybe 25 years ago, and of course I'm only 25, but but when I first heard about your work, a friend of mine had told me about a case that you were working on, which is one of the most tragic stories in the book Raised in Hell. It was a book about the brutal murder of a 7-year-old black girl by the name of Sharice Iverson. And you championed this case against her perpetrators, and not only helped hold the killer accountable, but you held the accomplice accountable for not stopping his friend from harming an innocent child. Now, this could have been yet another little black girl whose life and death became a statistic. Instead, you not only helped create visibility for her case, you helped draft legislation for what would become an actual law, Sharice's Law, that holds accountable witnesses of crimes against children 12 years or younger. This was really, really amazing. You don't know this, but when I heard about your work and what you were doing, I literally wrote a poem about you, called Little Black Girl All Alone, that I made a commitment to perform that poem on stages across the world every time people asked me to perform my spoken word. So I would literally dedicate this poem to you, Brother Najee Ali, because of your heart and the work that you were doing for this family and to help bring justice to this little baby. Because that one, yeah. All the stories in the book are amazing, family, but this story will really, to me, really shows the heart of a man and activists and the commitment that it takes to do work like this, because you worked on that one for years. Can you talk a little bit about what your greatest struggle and your greatest victory was in getting justice for Sharice?
I'll say the murder of Sharice Iverson, who's actually kidnapped, raped, and murdered in a Las Vegas bathroom casino, May 25th, 1997, was one of the greatest tragedies that I have worked on
Yeah.
among many. I can only imagine this 7-year-old, little black girl, being grabbed and then forced to, be in the stall as she's sexually assaulted by this, 18-year-old, grown white man, had to have been something that terrified her.
Yeah.
So she was helpless. And in my mind, I'm thinking, imagining, she's saying, someone help me. Uh, I'm being, sexually assaulted, by this man in the bathroom. And then the accomplice, David T. Cash, the murderer's best friend, Jeremy Strohmeyer, peered over and actually saw the child being sexually assaulted and walked out the bathroom. So I thought to myself, what type of person can see an innocent child, being raped in the bathroom, and you turn around, you walk out, and then when your friend comes out, finally after snapping her neck and murdering her, leaving her on the toilet seat, you ask what happened to the little nigger girl, and the killer responds, I killed that nigger. And so, and this is all based on not my opinion, based on facts. This is what they actually said according to the grand jury transcripts. So we saw this young black girl's life being devalued, her being murdered, and it was as if no one seemed to care. Everyone just moved on to the next story, and I was like, no, 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 hold up, So we began to organize protests and organize a press conference in LA to speak out about the injustice. And the killer was eventually arrested a few days later, but not the accomplice. And David Cash was the accomplice in the murder of Sharice Iverson. But the excuse, the white people, and I'm saying white people because they're the ones in charge of the prosecution, saying, well, there was no law that prohibited him from having to stop what was going on, even though morally it was wrong. So I say, well, you know what? We're going to do what white people do when their children are unfortunately murdered, and they create laws, whether it's Polly Claus, other laws for named after white victims. So I had an idea and brought it forward to Senator Tom Hayden, rest in peace at the time. And I said, well, I want to have a law called Sharice's Law that will have adults have to alert authorities if they saw any youth being violently attacked, sexually assaulted. And I was blessed to have Tom Hayden work on the legislation, introduce it into Sacramento. And it took 3 years because having a law signed by the governor isn't easy. It's not something that they will immediately do. But we worked on it. We didn't quit and never gave up until we finally were able to get the law on the governor's desk. And at that time, Assemblymember Tom Torlakson was the one who actually introduced it again after we failed the first time, but eventually got to Governor Gray Davis's desk in 2001, and he signed it. And so I'm proud to say that it's actually the first law in America named after a slain, murdered black child. Sharice's Law, AB 1422. You can Google it, the Sharice's Law. So that was something that I was honored to write the first draft of and get this legislation passed. And it was just important to me just as a black man because my daughter Jasmine was a young girl at the time. My daughter Journey is now 13. So I wanted to make sure that these black young girls know how priceless they are to us. These are our babies.
Yes.
So they need to know their lives are just as important as any other young girl's life, no matter what race they are. So we were able to accomplish something for black children that I'm hopeful that they will, read about, learn about, know that black men, black fathers do love and care about them tremendously.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Brother Najee. I want to pause just for a minute and welcome everyone again. If you're just tuning in, you're watching The Window. Welcome, Des Glover. Welcome, Pat Munson. Welcome, Santa Molina Marshall, one of our Noble Trinity Media writers as well. And we also want to welcome Brother Ambassador Olusegun Daramola. We are live in West Africa. We on two continents, family, right now.
Wow.
Brother Olusegun is president and CEO of Adulawo TV, which is a West African digital platform that streams. We have thousands of viewers of The Window through Adulawo TV. So we're so happy that you could come on and join us today. And just thank you as well for your work and your support. I know you're going to help us make this book, Raising Hell, go global and just, yes, sell all over the world. So I just want to give you an opportunity to greet Najee and to greet our viewers. Brother Ambassador Olusegun Daramola.
Thank you so much. Yeah, TaShia Asanti, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. Firstly, I would like to apologize for coming so late because difficulty with StreamYard and stuff. So, but I'm here now, and
Yeah.
thank you so much for receiving me. Yeah, Najee Ali, thank you so much for coming online with us. I really appreciate that. It's a very big pleasure for me to see you, and you have been doing a great work in the whole United States. And I want you to know that a lot of things that you have been doing is impactful also in Africa. We know about your work, we read about you, a lot of people would like to actually meet you, like, wow, Najee Ali everywhere. So thank you so much. Like, keep on doing, your work. And I want to assure you that I will make sure that your book, I'll make sure your book gets sold very well in the whole continent of Africa. Yeah.
Hey,
No,
I
well, thank you, Ambassador. It's a pleasure to meet you, brother, and I look forward to actually coming to visit you. So, trust me, I'll buy my plane ticket to get there. Just let me stay with you.
yes.
So,
Great.
yeah.
We're expecting,
Yeah.
we're expecting you.
Yeah. Well, I know we're gonna have you jump in and ask some of these questions. I'm gonna take this next one, and then you, Olusegun, if you don't mind coming in on the next one to talk a little bit about the work of President Obama. But I want to start with, before we go there, I want to talk about one of the stories in the book. And I've read this book from cover to cover, but this one was one of the stories I wasn't as familiar with until this new edition, which is the story of Cheryl Greene, a young African American girl from Riverside County, which is a county in California. So in the book, you talk about a peace treaty that you helped broker between African American and Latino citizens from that neighborhood. So in urban cities across America, I just want to give you all a little background. We all know there have been challenges with gang violence. By now, most of us know about what happened and what's been going on in Chicago, which is my birthplace. And we also know the backdrops, which we won't go into today. We'll have to do a part two to this to talk more about the role and the part that racism plays in gang violence and the way that, this whole culture has been bred in this country. But again, that's another workshop. But many times this violence has involved, people of color and other people of color. Can you talk about this dynamic, and in particular as it centers around the murder of Cheryl Greene and the work that you did to help facilitate healing and peace? But what do you believe, Najee, the problem stems from? So when we talk about, black on black crime and brown on black crime, where do you believe that problem stems from? And in your opinion, what are viable solutions to ending that dynamic and that dichotomy?
Well, I think the problem stems from, which is something that most problems of that nature stems from, is ignorance.
Hmm.
Ignorance and lack of tolerance in allowing someone to be different from you, whether that tolerance uh, is someone having different skin color,
Yeah.
uh, identifying different sexuality. So the intolerance is the ignorance is what I think the biggest obstacle is in disagreements, and we have to be more tolerant of other people, regardless of race, religion, sexual identification. So the murder of Cheryl Greene was horrible. She was a 14-year-old child just walking home from school with her friends, and was targeted because she was black
Hmm.
by these Latino gang members and shot and murdered and in cold blood in that neighborhood off 204 in Western Harvard Gateway area had a long history of racial murders
Hmm.
targeting black people just for the color of their skin, as if this was 1950, 1960, Mississippi, and most people were totally unaware of what was going on in that area. But when Cheryl Greene was murdered, something hit me in my heart that we need to get to that family and help them. And Cheryl Greene's mother, Charlene Lovett, uh, needed our help and welcomed us to come help immediately. So I met with the mother and the family and began to organize a series of press conferences and marches against racism. And the mayor of LA, Antonio Villaraigosa at the time, he joined us along with City Councilwoman Janice Hahn and other politicians. So that case actually got so big, the FBI director came to LA, Robert Miller at the time. So that effort and that campaign I led was something that was very important at the time when she was murdered. And the peace treaty that I was able to organize with the Latino gang members was very important. I can remember walking into the restaurant where we met, and I was actually scared. For the first time in my life, I was actually scared that I would be set up and murdered by these Latino gang members. But fortunately, we were able to have a dialogue where they knew that if any more black people were killed, that there would be a racial war in that neighborhood because we had already had, gang members, Crips and Bloods, who were on their way to retaliate for Cheryl Greene's murder against these Latino gang members. But I asked them to hold off, let me talk to them first to see what we can negotiate because one thing we didn't want to do was have a racial war with blacks and Latinos, killing each other over Cheryl Greene's murder. We were successful in having a peace treaty, and I think, and I can say this very honestly, I think that was some of the best work that I've done, in my life that never got enough notice. But for me, it's never about being noticed. It's just about getting the job done and serving my people. But the murder of Cheryl Greene, and people actually should Google the murder of Cheryl Greene to learn more about this young black girl who was simply murdered just for the color of her skin walking home from school.
Jesus. Yes. I had heard, because at that time I was living in Colorado, and I had heard that there was, violent intimidation, that black folks literally were being told they could not go to certain markets. And you write about this in the book, that they couldn't walk down certain streets or they would be killed. So people were literally, imprisoned in their homes or afraid to walk to their car to go to work. Like that was the climate at that time. And through your work, and I tell you, it has to be the ancestors that you were able to go in there and help, end that violence. And I really believe that, when we talk about what feeds that, in the book you talk about that there in another story where there was a spearheading of white supremacist organizations that were feeding into that and funneling resources to, Latino gang members to exterminate African Americans, that this was supported. So when we look at the rippling effects of racism and white supremacy in this country and around the world, we see it show up in things like this and incidents like this. And I know there was something like this in Nigeria that happened in Nigeria, West Africa. There was a big political war going on to end some different forms of oppression of people and their rights to vote. And I know that you, Ambassador, were very instrumental in helping to bring light to that through your work in social media and on your various media platforms. So I know you know all too well about this. And it's interesting how what happens in America shows up in Africa, and what happens in Africa ends up happening in America. Would you say that's true, Darmola?
Yes, that's very true. Very, very true. It's so sad that a lot of things like that keep on happening in different parts of the world with our people. Yes, it is almost everywhere these days. A lot of, even police brutalities, global issue also. The same way it happens, in the States, it's so much happen here also in Nigeria and different parts of Africa as a continent. So but then Najee, I have a question for you. Okay. Yeah. In raising hell, you talk about the opportunity to work with Reverend Jesse Jackson, and like uh, like one of the most noted civil rights leader in the American history. Okay, what were your three important lessons you learned from working with him so far?
Well, he answered that one earlier.
Okay.
So probably what I'm going to suggest is that you go to, let me tell you what the next one is on here, is that if you can talk with him about the work with his encounter with Tavis Smiley and Cornell West. Let's do that question because he actually talked extensively about his work with Jesse. And while you're finding that in your script, I'm going to ask him a little bit about President Obama. How about, is that okay for you? So find that question, if you would, Daramola, about Tavis Smiley and Cornell West. And I want to hit you up, Najee, about meeting President Obama. When you were running, when he was running for the U.S. Senate, this is how far back you went with him on his journey. You talk about in the book, you went to this event in the community. I think it was a Kwanzaa celebration. And I know there's a big Kwanzaa celebration at the Kawaida Institute every year. I don't know if it was that big famous one with the one where, the founder of Kwanzaa. But you were going to an event and you said you saw this tall, lanky brother puffing on a cigarette.
Yes.
And you were thinking to yourself, wow, okay, this brother, no, he don't need to be smoking or something like that. Like, where is he? What is he doing? He's such a good looking guy. Why would he be puffing on that cancer? But you just kept it moving, not even knowing, literally, you were looking on the man that was going to be the first African-American president. So how and when did you know for sure that he would win? You ended up getting involved in his campaign. You volunteered for his senatorial campaign. But then later, when he decided to run for president, you actually participated in that campaign as well. So, like, as you were doing this, there's this guy, who's gonna, for the second time in history, a black man is gonna run for president. What were your thoughts about that? And when did you know for sure, like, this is the man that's gonna win? He's gonna make history. And Daramola, you're up next. So don't
Well,
forget
actually,
that question.
yeah, I had no idea whatsoever he was going to win. But I can remember the very first time I met Barack Obama was actually in Chicago. I was going to the Kwanzaa event. Dr. Karanga was the guest speaker, and he's someone who I've known for years, being in LA. So I pulled my Jeep in the parking lot and I saw this tall brother, smoking a cigarette. And it was cold outside. So I thought to myself, man, this brother's going to either freeze to death or catch cancer. So as I entered the Kwanzaa event, I saw the young brother come in, and I looked closer, and I was like, wait a minute, that's the young brother who's running for a political office. He's running for U.S. Senate. So I immediately walked over to him, and I said, hey, let's sit down and talk. So we went and sat and talked in the back of the auditorium. And I said, well, hey, I'm Najee Ali. I'm a well-known activist and organizer from LA, but I'm living in Chicago now, and I would love to, volunteer in your campaign. So he immediately said, oh, yeah, we need all the help we can get. So we talked in the back, sat down with each other, and I agreed to volunteer and help him. Then as time progressed during the campaign, I would catch the train downtown Chicago, and actually see him in the campaign office. And we would always, talk to each other, and make small talk. And I can remember very clearly one day I came in and the top staff of the campaign, they, were aware of who I was. and I was from LA originally. And they asked me, could I go to LA to help Barack with a fundraiser in Beverly Hills? So I said, well, sure, of course, give me the date. So yeah. So in fact, Jennifer Yeager is her name, the Barack Obama's campaign staff member at the time, who I give credit for making sure that Barack Obama knew who I was and I was plugged in. So I flew back to LA to help organize the fundraiser. And when I got to the event that was held actually in West Hollywood, Chris Tucker was there, who was a longtime friend of mine, who I first met through Reverend Jesse Jackson years ago. So Chris and I were outside talking, and when Barack was finished, he was about to leave. Chris and I were about to take a picture, and at the last moment, I saw Barack standing to the side, waiting for us to finish the photo op. So I said to myself, "Oh, come on, brother, come get in the picture." And so there's a picture of Barack Obama, myself, and Chris Tucker that was taken. And at that time, Chris Tucker was the one who was actually the actual celebrity. He was the one who was famous, then me, in LA. So no one knew who Barack Obama was at that time until a month and a half later, that August, where he made this speech at the Democratic National Convention. And that's when the whole world knew who Barack Obama was. So I'm just grateful to say that Barack and Obama, we have a relationship. It's not like we hang out or call each other, but when Barack Obama sees me, he knows exactly who I am. And I was there from the very beginning, helping him on his campaign. So Barack Obama is someone who has inspired not just myself, but I believe, Black people across the globe. And he's our first Black president. So I'm just grateful to say that I was there at the very beginning. I didn't jump on the bandwagon. And Barack knows that. His family and others who worked in the campaign know that I was there in Chicago with him at the very outset of his campaign.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. That is so amazing. I often wish my aunt, and you know this, Najee, from our conversations, that my aunt was a campaign manager to a U.S. president, to Jimmy Carter, and she worked heavily in. Oh, we lost Najee. He'll come right back in just a minute. There's some background noise with you, Olusegun. I'm not sure where it's coming in from, but hopefully Najee will come right back from us. He must have lost his signal, so we'll give him a minute to get back on.
Okay.
But there's some music or some sort of backdrop there. Olusegun, I think it's with you. Let me just mute you and see if it stops. Hold on. Yes, it does. So it's on your end. There's something behind you there that has a little bit of noise. So if you can, I don't know. It sounds like some music or something in the background. It may not be something you can stop. So that's okay. We can hear you, but we'll just mute you. Yeah. So let's give Najee a minute to come back on, and I'll read some of these comments.
Okay.
So Dr. Felicia Ali Ann Banks says, thank you for hosting this, TaShia. Bernie and I are watching in a different room. We can hear these insights. There's Najee. I'm going to add him back to the stream. There we go. We got you back, Najee. It happens.
No, I'm sorry. This is my Wi-Fi.
Okay, yes. I know you're international. But I was reading the beautiful comment from Dr. Felicia and Ali and Banks, because we can hear these insights over and over, and it's always amazing to hear each time. Yes, and I know you live it, so you really know, you understand, so much more. Welcome everybody. We see so many people from across the country and across the nation who are tuning in with us. We're going to be asking your questions shortly. We have a few more questions. Olusegun, I believe you're going to take the next question, and I inboxed it to you just in case, because I know it's a lot of questions here.
Yes.
So it's on you, my brother.
Oh, yes. Najee, there are times, when activists disagree with each other, right? And you had such a very serious encounter with two prominent Black American leaders Tavis Smiley and Dr. Connor West. So why is it important to remain open, to reconciliation and healing, even when we disagree with each other, as a leader, as a writer, as a very powerful activist? So why is it so important to remain open and reconciliation and healing, even when we are, disagree with each other?
Well, I think it's very important that at the end of the day, that we have Black unity, especially those in the role of leadership, those who are public figures, because the community, they look to us for leadership because we are public figures and we are Black leaders, whether we like it or not. So with Tavis Smiley and Dr. Cornell West, they had some disagreements concerning Barack Obama at the time. They were very critical of our first Black president, and I took exception with that and spoke to both of them and made it clear to them that I didn't like it, as well as many others did not like it. That whatever criticisms they had against our first Black president, they should direct it to him personally, privately, because everyone knows who Tavis Smiley and Dr. Cornell West are. So they aren't like regular brothers and sisters. If they wanted to get a message to Barack Obama, trust me, White House staff would have made sure their message would have been passed on and conveyed to President Obama. But instead, they began to criticize him more and more until finally in LA, I had enough and actually led a protest outside Tavis Smiley's office on Crenshaw Boulevard, which obviously garnered a lot of media attention. And when I saw Tavis in person, oh, we had words, and Tavis, was very irritated, and I just made it clear, look, brother, you mad at me, but I'm mad at you, and other people mad at you for what you're doing. So I didn't bite my tongue and didn't back down, because one thing about me, if I do a protest, I'm not apologizing. I'm protesting because you did something I thought was wrong, and I'm standing up for those who you're attacking or you're harming. So I think my protest was something that if I had to do it all over again, I would. But at the end of the day, Tavis and Cornell West, they are still our brothers, whether we like it or not. So for me, I had to talk to them and realize that at the end of the day, Black activists, no matter what, we can't be fighting and attacking each other, especially publicly, because white people love that. Our enemies, they love that. So we have to realize that at the end of the day, I think we all want what's best for Black people. We just have different tactics, different strategies. And that's what I've learned, over the years, because I have not always agreed with what Reverend Jackson's done or said, as well as Reverend Sharpton. But at the end of the day, we always, learn to, forgive each other, embrace each other, and the brotherhood and sisterhood of activism what was most important. So we all came together, as time healed those wounds and continued to work and embrace each other again, publicly as well as privately.
That's a very great one. That's a very beautiful, heavenly move that you take there. And thank you so much for being a good example, because it's a lesson you just taught a lot of us now. That even when we disagree on certain things, when we take steps in disagreement with one another, we can still be happy with one another. So thank you so much for that. I pray.
You got a little background noise there going, my brother. Maybe try come in and come back, go out and come back in. That might get rid of it. It happens, it's this technology. We can't do anything to control it.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's gone now.
Yes. We'll bring you right back in. Come on back. So, Brother Najee, another one of the stories in the book that I was just again blown away by, because I saw all this happening, but this was a time when I was doing whatever it was I was doing. So I didn't know how much you had done to help facilitate this particular social change. So you expanded your activism to include the entertainment industry. And in Raising Hell, we learned how your activism helped usher in mega change in the Oscars and the Academy Awards. So, if for those of you who are watching who are novices, these award shows basically decide the level of success. And by success, I mean pay and freedom, and positioning for actors, directors, writers, and producers. So, once you get an Oscar or an Academy Award, is basically you're going to get a certain amount of money when you do a movie. You're going to have a certain place and status in Hollywood and in the film and television industry. So it's a really important stage in your development as an actor to get one of these awards. Now, this work that you, brother Najee, did was not only groundbreaking, it changed the industry as a whole. One of my very close friends happens to manage an A-list actor, and I remember her coming and telling me they just elected this brother to be a part of the Oscars and the Academy Awards, the review committee that decides the awards, who's going to get an Oscar, who's going to get Best Director, all of that. And it was a big deal because he is an African American male. And I was like, she's like, they're doing this big push to make sure there's more people of color who sit on the deciding committee. And I was like, oh, that is so good. Had no idea that you, brother Najee Ali, had played a key role in facilitating this change. And as someone who makes film, I know how big this was. So again, you're going to have to get the book to read the whole story. But can you touch on how important this work was in creating new avenues for actors of color and ensuring that they get fair pay and treatment, and that people of all races who work in film and television get fair pay and treatment, for the work that they do in this industry? Can you talk about that, brother Najee?
Well, I'll just say that the Oscars campaign was something personal and dear to me because a good friend of mine, when I say a good friend of mine, I'm speaking of Ava DuVernay, who's been a longtime friend of mine for like 20 plus years. I have Ava's cell phone number in my cell phone, and I actually used to work with her on a blog that she created. I was one of Ava's writers, so Ava and I would email each other. We would meet and have coffee and talk about things years ago before she was famous. But when she became prominent, her film Selma was a masterpiece, and I could not believe that Ava DuVernay was not nominated for an Oscar. But in fact, that year, no black person was nominated for an Oscar. So I said, well, this is not fair, and began to organize a protest outside the Oscars. And I spoke to Ava when she got wind of it. She called me and said, hey, brother Najee, I love you. You're my friend. I support you, but not now, brother. Not now. Don't do this now. Let's have a dialogue with the Academy. So out of my respect for Ava, and I didn't want to harm her career, which was just getting off the ground, I canceled the protest at the last minute. But the following year, the same thing happened again. There were no black nominees for the Oscar. And we're talking about actors from Will Smith to Idris Elba to Viola Davis. No black projects were nominated. So I said, okay, you know what? Enough's enough. And someone created this hashtag called Oscar So White, which got a lot of attention. So I was here on the ground and was determined to lead a boycott and protest of the Oscars, and actually had the honor of working, quietly, behind the scenes with, black people who do care about Hollywood, who are insiders. One person is Reggie Hudlin, Reginald Hudlin, who was on Inside, and we would have phone conversations. And he said, "Hey, Najee, we're pushing from the inside as much as possible." Cheryl Boone Isaacs, a black woman, in fact, the first black woman to head the Academy, was in charge now. So I said, well, you know what? You guys do what you can from the inside. I'm gonna work on the outside and put as much pressure on this industry to make changes as much as possible while we have black people in place in the decision making progress. So I called Reverend Al Sharpton and said, Reverend Sharpton, we're organizing this big protest of the Academy Awards demanding change. So Reverend Sharpton told me, hey, Najee, I'll be there. So as a result, I also had a press conference saying, well, look, the reason why black people aren't being nominated as well as other people of color and women is because 80 or 90% of the voters are white old men.
Yes.
So those were the rules. So I said, well, in any organization, the rules can be changed. So I called a press conference, demanding and calling for the rules to be changed in academy voting. And fortunately, because we did have black people in charge, Cheryl Boone Isaac, Reggie Hutland, they went to the Board of Governors and changed the voting rules to include more diversity, more women, more younger people having a chance to vote. So I can proudly say, and that doesn't haven't been talked about enough. Not that I care that I helped call for and spearhead for the academy voting rules to be changed to include more people of color, more women to be members of the academy, as well as those rules being changed. And I learned that from Sharice Iverson. If you want to make real change, you have to change the public policy because protests and press conferences, they don't change nothing. They create visibility and awareness. It's the rules and the public policy that make things happen. So the rules were changed, and now as a result, we see more and more black people who are voting members, and they've been nominated more, and they've actually won more Oscars since I spearheaded that protest years ago.
Yes. Yeah, Denzel. I mean, so many others like we saw following that year. And again, it was a big shift, and it continues to get better. And there's more visibility for the work. In fact, Moonlight. I don't know. I saw an interview as I was researching this particular question. I saw an interview with the brother who did Moonlight, and he talked about the work that you did to bring that change happening soon thereafter. When he won, I think it was best director or writer or something, but I know it was like multiple awards went to that film, Moonlight.
Well, not only that film, but there were other, black actors and who won awards, including even Ruth Carter for wardrobe design. And so I thought to myself, I'm so happy for these black people. But I know in my heart they may not know, but I kind of feel that hey, I played a major part in you getting that award. Spike Lee, who won an award also because I'm the one who helped force those rules to be changed to include more diversity in the voters. So,
Yeah.
and to Spike Lee's credit, he did acknowledge the work that black activists did in getting those rules changed.
Yes. And there's a question from one of our viewers that really is significant to this uh, discussion. And they asked, do you feel protests are a necessary component to facilitate change in public policy?
Oh, without question, protest has always been important and the first step to changing public policy. We know as activists in this generation that Dr. King, uh, Rosa Parks, SCLC, NAACP, Urban League, and others who were in the movement back in the 60s that gave birth to the civil rights movement, that was their method of protests and sit-ins and demonstrations and marches and rallies to raise awareness to help Dr. King go to Washington to help usher in a civil rights act and laws to help protect black people and to give us equal treatment where we can drink at the same water fountain
Yeah.
white people do, use the same restrooms, and have equal rights. So protests are something that black activists must always use an instrument. But after the protest, it has to be some public policy changes and conversations to make permanent change.
Awesome, awesome. You made me think about in as a young child, there was a restaurant in South Central off of Crenshaw Boulevard and what is now King Boulevard called Lindbergh's. And we used to do, I was doing counter protests where we would go and sit at the counter as Black folks. I didn't even know my mother had me part of a counter protest because she'd say, sit right here, baby. And we would order food. And I didn't know that at this particular restaurant, Black people were forbidden to sit at the counter and order food. And so,
Yes.
again, what you're talking about and what you are doing, the work that you are doing is so amazing. It's so amazing and important to bringing, healing and change to our nation. And just, we see you guys, I see all these comments in the chat. Welcome, Pat Munson. We are
Pat.
Hey, Pat, we're in Barbados because she's in Barbados. So we're streaming live. We're all over the world right now. We're in West Africa. We're in the UK. I see some of my friends here from London. Please share the video. We are in Maryland. We are in Seattle, Washington. So wherever you are, please share the video to your social media. Invite your friends to be a part of this discussion. We're getting to the meat now. We're getting ready to go. Speaking of protests, we're getting ready to talk about this NFL stuff. And Ambassador Olusegun Daramola, you wanted to talk with Najee about what he saw and his support of Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, it's very important. Yeah, that's true. Najee, you see, your historic barcodes of NFL helped a lot to shape the world because we are able to recognize the role that the sport figures can play in facilitating social justice these days. Okay, now your support for Colin Kaepernick created not only visibility for his sacrifices, it shined a light on racism in sports also, then even in entertainment entirely, the whole entertainment industry, right? So what do you hope? What do you hope the public learned from the people, from people like Colin Kaepernick, public stand against racism and police brutality? I mean, what do you hope?
Well, I'll say this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I never met this brother, but Kaepernick, in my opinion, is a true American hero, a true patriot in the tradition of Muhammad Ali, John Smith, and Tommy Carlos. He lost his football career, his NFL career, and millions of dollars he sacrificed because in taking a stand against the unjust murders of Black men, women, and children, nationwide, he took a knee to highlight the injustices that was going on, and our people were being murdered in the streets by police with impunity, and all the cops were getting away with it, and they continue to get away with it. And for Colin Kaepernick, he was essentially, blackballed. He was banned from the NFL because he chose to take a knee. So that inspired me to say, well, listen, if you're going to, punish this brother, I'm not going to support the NFL, because anytime a corporation punishes an employee for speaking out against racism peacefully, then I can't support that corporation. So I was honored to lead the first protest in LA outside the NFL Rams games, even getting arrested to show that we stand with Kaepernick. Was honored to be joined by so many fellow activists, including my wife and daughter, who took a knee to protest police brutality and support Kaepernick. So Kaepernick, and history is going to show us that he was on the right side of history in what he did by protesting police brutality peacefully and taking a knee. So I'm grateful that he sacrificed, and I just was very encouraged and honored to actually join in this protest in my own way by leading the LA protests and supporting Kaepernick's stand.
Yes. I
That's
think,
great.
oh yeah, go on, Olusegun. Go on, please.
That's a very powerful stand there, Najee. But you see, I have another question for you. On a personal level, so what do you think the public could learn from Kaepernick life? If you have to advise people, for as an example, what do you think we can learn from company lifestyle? Do you think people like the general public should be able to strive to do better? I mean, against police brutality, etc. I mean, do you think we should be like Kaepernick?
I think that the public can learn that you can make change,
Yeah.
and you can make change peacefully. You don't have to always be in the streets, protesting or marching or rallying. Kaepernick made change by just
Mm.
taking a knee right there where he stood at, by himself, and got, worldwide, global attention. So, black people should always be encouraged that when there's injustice, we must do what we can and protest in the method that we're able to. His method was just taking a knee. It wasn't in the streets or marching, but it was effective in what he did. So there's all types of protests that black people should continue to use and demonstrate when we see that we are the victims of injustice. So I'm just very encouraged that we are continuing to fight and protest in the legacy of Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, and so many others, globally, because at the end of the day, we're all black and we all come from the same country, Africa. That's our home, the motherland.
Mm. I love it. I love it. Yes,
Thank
you
you so much.
that simple act, right, you guys? I mean, just that simple act of going down on that one knee that changed so much. And I know you, brother Najee, you also for a period of time asked for people to boycott the NFL games. And I'm laughing because I remember brothers was like, "We love you, brother Najee, but no, don't take our football."
Yeah,
Right? But
and
we were supporting
yeah,
you though.
well, and I understand that. So for me, I boycotted, 2 years, missed the games and two Super Bowls until Kaepernick was able to negotiate an NFL settlement and get paid the money that was due to him by the NFL. And once that was done, then I resumed watching the NFL. So for me, boycotts and protests, they're not for everybody, but certainly I think it's a matter of choice and being conscious enough to sacrifice. So certainly I said to myself that at the end of the day, the black people who were murdered by the police,
Yes.
their lives were taken from them. They were murdered. So they can't watch Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin,
That part.
George Floyd. They'll never watch another football game in their life. They were murdered unjustly. So
Yes.
it was a small sacrifice not to watch football until Kaepernick's case was negotiated fairly, for him, and he was given a settlement by the NFL.
Yes. Victory. Yeah, I remember I was like, turn that football on. I'm like, Brother Najee said we are not watching football. So we would be going back and forth. Then I hear somebody watching in the back room or something. They shall go nameless right now. But anyway, speaking of injustice, one of the other stories that you talk about and that basically stormed the nation was Nipsey Hustle.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. That family, when you get to that chapter, just, go get you something cold to drink because it is an incredible and sad story. It's a tragic story. But I think Nipsey Hussle's legacy truly aligns with your legacy of transformation, empowerment, and healing, Brother Najee. In Raising Hell, you write about your role and your work in ensuring the people involved in taking his life were brought to justice and in helping to bring healing to the family and the communities that he loved and that loved him. And what was so powerful, one of the things that was so powerful, and again, why I say he reminds me of you, because he was able to unite communities that had been at war. Like, I mean, it was crazy. Like the Crips and the Bloods were both marching together when they had the rite of passage and the walk in South Central Los Angeles. These two major gangs, for those of you who are watching internationally and don't know who the Bloods and the Crips are. They are two iconic, I hate to use that word, but street gangs. And even though we don't celebrate the bad things that they've done, I also recognize why they were formed and what that was all about. That's another show. We're gonna have to do a part two. But Brother Najee, you took it upon, your own, with all that you had going on, to not only speak out on the violence that happened, but there was an accomplice. The person who took Nipsey from us had an accomplice, a girlfriend of the person who shot him, who drove the car, who waited in the alley for him. And you said, no, we're not only going to hold that person accountable, but anybody who supports acts like this need to know that they're going to be held accountable too. What are two important lessons that the world should get from Nipsey's life and death? Can you speak about the lessons that you feel he taught us through his life and his death?
Well, neighborhood Nipsey is someone who had the pleasure of, meeting, a few times, and he was not just a rapper. Nipsey Hustle was an entrepreneur. He was an activist. He was a business person, a philanthropist who gave back to the community. He gave back to the community where, unfortunately, he lost his life at. So he is someone who inspired not just young people, but the whole city. And his death, his murder, shocked the whole nation. So Nipsey Hussle will always be remembered as someone who said, don't move, improve. He was someone who fought gentrification, someone who, put his money into trying to improve his community and bought property, bought land, believed in ownership, technology. So our community will never forget Nipsey. In fact, I remember the last time I actually, talked to him was at an event Ava DuVernay had, where, I was on stage, after the program, and walked over to Nipsey, and we spoke and, embraced each other. And I thanked him for his activism, because in full transparency, at my age, I didn't listen to Nipsey's music, but I was inspired by him as far as his activism, his participation. Even when Trayvon Martin was murdered, Nipsey came out to the peace march we had at Crenshaw High School with Trayvon Martin's parents and Kobe Bryant. So he was a true activist, someone that you said brought people together. And so there will never be, in my opinion, another Nipsey Hussle in LA. I don't see it. He's irreplaceable.
Yes. I mean, the only other person I know other than you that was able to do something like what Nipsey did was, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who brought, gangs together and negotiated a truce. I mean, this is life-changing, community transforming work that y'all are engaged in, and Nipsey was part of that. The marathon continues, as we say in South Central, and will
No,
always
yes.
continue. Yes.
No, it does, and I can't take credit for doing everything. Certainly, Minister Tony Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, and their leader, Minister Louis Farrakhan, have been very influential, not just in L.A. but across Black America, Black urban America, in bringing brothers together and trying to keep peace. So we all work together. There's like no big I's, no little U's. Our message is about working together and working together in unity.
Yes. And your organization, you actually founded an organization that has been so much a part of this. And one of the questions that we actually missed early on was talking about the myths and the stereotypes of our Muslim brothers and sisters. And you have just so, to me, you work from such an inclusive place, where, you are very passionate about your faith and proud of your faith that you embrace. That was a big part. You write about this in the book. It's a big part of your healing journey, was to embrace Islam as a practice. But you also are so inclusive, and you celebrate and affirm whatever path people
Mhm.
go down for their own edification. Can you talk before we go to our closing question, which Brother Daramola is going to talk about one of the key, big, huge cases, which is our brother George Floyd. So we're about to go there. Stay tuned, family. But before we ask that question, can you talk a little bit about the stereotypes of people who practice Islam and our Muslim brothers and sisters, and what people need to know to correct within themselves as they view this community?
Well, certainly, I think Islam here in America has been stigmatized, it's been demonized, and it's been misunderstood. Certainly, Islam is a religion of peace, not terrorism. And my deceased former father-in-law, Imam W.D. Muhammad, was America's, foremost Muslim leader, who I learned so much. So for me, I don't try to convert anybody. I don't even talk about religion. I just try to live the best life I can. And for me, I embrace everyone because I can remember years ago, one of the first jobs I was able to have was working for Minority Age Project, Bishop Carl Bean, Pops. I called him Pops. He called me son. He hired me. So I'm working in an organization led by LGBTQ people. And it didn't matter to me because to me, they love me. I love them. So I embrace everybody. I don't care what race, what religion, what you believe in, who you love. That's your personal business, and at the end of the day, I don't judge nobody because I don't want nobody judging me. So I accept people for who they are. Just accept me for who I am.
Yes, yes. Awesome teaching. Awesome teaching. Brother Ambassador Olusegun Daramola.
This is a very great. Thank you so much, Tashanti. This is a very great one. Thank you so much, Najee Ali, for all these amazing work that you have been doing all around. I'm so like, wow. Yeah. Concerning the issue of George Floyd, see, injustice, it's a global phenomenon. George, who is it's a very young man, and you were able to curate, a visibility to make sure that the murder of George was, brought to justice. You took part in all that, and what are the three actions people should take when injustice is happening in their community and even in their environment? So, what do you advise? Like three main actions that you can advise people to take when injustice is happening in their community, and in what way can we all become activists, to facilitate justice for ourselves and the people that we love in our own way?
I think anyone can become an activist. You don't have to be in the streets marching or protesting. You can be an activist right from your living room just by signing an online petition, making a donation to people who are boots on the ground, organizing phone calls to elected officials to make changes in public policy. So being an activist doesn't always mean you have to be out there protesting in the streets, marching. You can do activism right from your computer or right from your telephone by trying to share and bring attention to injustice. So the murder of George Floyd is something that shocked the whole globe. I had heard about black men being murdered and lynched, but George Floyd's murder was actually captured on cell phone video and shown on CNN. So the whole world saw the public lynching of George Floyd, which caused not just myself, but activists from all across the globe to be in the streets and speak out in protest.
Thank you so much. It's a very beautiful one. I mean, like, injustice, it's something that we all should fight, and this is happening globally. It's happening globally. Thank you so much for standing up for George, and thanks so much also for standing up for Nipsey. I really appreciate your effort. Thank you so much, Najee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador.
You're most welcome.
One of the things that was so powerful for me in my tradition of Ifa is that I remember getting a video from Nigeria, West Africa, where there were prayers and to the ancestors being done for George and for justice to come forth in the George Floyd case. And I know in the book, Najee, you were front and center to that case. Like you literally monitored everything that was happening. I think you even knew when they announced the verdict for the officer who murdered him. You were there when that was announced. So we were like watching your page, waiting for you to give out like what had happened in the verdict because we were praying that it wasn't going to be another situation where a police officer, was given a pass for this horrific murder. Because so many times, and you write, there's so many other stories in the book, Rodney King, many other, international news stories and cases that happen. Of course, you also talk about all the cases that we never even heard about of young Black men who were exterminated and killed by police. But in this case, thank goodness we did have justice. And a lot of it was because of the work that you did.
Well, I think it was the work that everybody did around George Floyd, Ben Crump, Al Sharpton, Tamika Mallory, so many black activists and others across the nation. I was blessed to go to Minnesota, four times, thanks to Robert Sacedo, who helped sponsor my trip. So it was a collective effort, but certainly the murder of George Floyd touched everyone's heart and soul. Grateful to say that, going to Minnesota four times. I'm actually friends with George Floyd's family, so we stay in contact. We meet and talk to each other. So I'm just grateful the Floyd family knows that I was there to support them, along with so many others, because they certainly needed and deserved the support. Because nobody should lose their life the way George Floyd did, and the fact that I actually saw a black man be murdered on CNN in front of my own eyes was devastating. I was distraught and emotionally, torn. Where I went to Minnesota the very next day. I was
Mm,
there for the protests the
mm.
very next day.
And this was in the middle of us
Of
dealing with a global pandemic. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
honestly, it was something I had to pray about because it was during, the global pandemic. And I thought to myself, I could actually, catch COVID. And because of my prior history with cancer and being on chemotherapy for 2 years, my immune system being weakened, I said if I catch COVID, I may die on the ventilator. But I had to pray to God and said, well, you know what? I need to be here. But if I do die, I'm dying doing something I believed in.
Mm.
So
And
I had
that's
no
the important
regrets.
thing. Yes. Yes. In the book, I remember reading the story about, and when you wrote about George Floyd, and your wife was like, "You going where?" Right? And I know, that feeling, but I also know that feeling being an activist where like you have to go, like you have to go, and then you have to be somewhere because like it just won't be the same if you're not. And there's things that you, Brother Najee, and your body can do that so many others can't do, which you did, which is mobilize the nation, help mobilize the world. Because there were protests all over the world in support of George Floyd. Thank you. Oh, Santa Molina sends you a message. Much, much love. She's just can't wait to get her copy of Raising Hell, and so glad to be a part of the Noble Trinity family, and just sends you her blessings. Our sister from Maryland, your fellow Trinity family. And speaking of that, Noble Trinity, I want to thank D. Pepper Massey,
Yes,
president of
yes.
Noble Trinity Media Publishing, for committing to this amazing project. We are not going to rest until we see number one on the New York Times bestseller list. I also want to thank our American media partner, Your World TV, and our brother, Ambassador Olusegun Daramola, CEO of our West African media partner, Adulawo TV, who has helped take the message of the window to thousands of people all over the world. We're raising hell internationally today, family, And I want to thank all of you, our viewers, who came out to support Najee Ali and his book, Raising Hell. And I want to ask a favor of everybody. I know you're going to share the video. You've already shared the video. But I want to ask that you please support this book and the powerful medicine and messages that it represents. And I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do. So I want y'all to get a pen and paper out, or we're going to post these things, is to, 1, sign up on nobletrinityenterprises.com, where you can be on go to Najee's page there. He has a book page on our website. Sign up for his mailing list, because when we put that link live in the next few days, we want to blow up Amazon. Like, we literally want them to go, oh my God, and list his book as one of the #1 titles. And we want you to follow up after you purchase the book. Follow up by writing a positive review about the book, because we know you're going to be blown away when you read these incredible stories. #2, we want to ask you to please host a book club event or gathering with your fraternal org or your sorority. So I'm speaking out to all y'all, you AKAs, you deltas, you alphas, my brothers. Invite Najee to speak at your college, your church, your mosque, your temple, your ile, whatever you do. Invite Brother Najee out to do a book signing, to come and share with your group. You can contact me, president of Noble Trinity Publishing. All of my information is online at the Noble Trinity Enterprises website, and we will make sure that Najee gets to you. We'll give you all his requirements, and you can send us an email. I'm getting ready to give you the email address, nobletrinitymedia@gmail.com, so that you can book Najee to have him come out to your event. And then the last thing is just to share the link to this interview on your social media pages, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, because you can help us make Raising Hell go viral, right? And then just to honor Najee's legacy, you can also make a donation, a tax-deductible donation to his organization. And I don't know the website. Najee, if you can give us the website to your organization.
Oh, just go to NajeeAli.com.
NajeeAli.com.
Yes.
And, support the work that he does. He travels the world. And like a lot of activists, this is like, he does this work. So anything you can do to support, to help this book be a huge success and to get the message out in the book. And on this day, today, I want all of us to just speak his name, because so often we speak the names of our beloveds and our activists when something happens. But he is a living activist. He is creating a story every day. So if you just join me today, I'm going to speak his name, Brother Najee Ali. We want to honor you today. Oh, it's getting me a little choked up. I don't do this. Whew. As one of our greatest activists, as one of our African-American leaders who continues to be on the front lines as a voice for the voiceless, and to bring justice where there is not justice. And we have to support each other. We can, disagree all we want, but at the end of the day, we look at the people who are doing the work. And in the words of one of my Sheryls, Audre Lorde, she said, I'm out here doing my work. And my question is, are you doing yours? So we know that you, Brother Najee, are doing the work. So we speak your name today, wherever you are. Just pause, speak this brother's name. Lift up the legacy that he has created of justice for all. And if you know anything about his work, he doesn't believe in just supporting one group. One of his mottos is wherever there is injustice, this is the work that he is going to stand up for. He is going to speak out against. So we thank you again, and thank you for being a guest on the window. And we'll see you at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. It's already done. The ancestors proclaim it. And I thank you, Brother Ambassador Olusegun Daramola. I know it's middle of the night or something there. So thank you for being online and being committed. You do so much positive work in the world. Thank you for supporting Raising Hell, a life of activism. Again, blessings to all. Thank you, House of Pinky. You're on here. Please support independent Black women-owned businesses. House of Pinky supported. Thank you for promoting Raising Hell. Thank you for your work in supporting Your World TV. And we'll see you next time. We got to have a part 2, because it's like 5 more stories we didn't even get to talk about, y'all. But you got to get the book. Get the book. Get the book. Sign up today. we'll make sure that you know when this book, the link is live, where you can go on Amazon and purchase your copy. And we're going to, of course, have an in-person event with Brother Najee. You got to wear your mask. We're not going to harass you about the vax, non-vax, but you got to wear your mask, everybody. But we're going to come out in support of Brother Najee in person and let him know how much we appreciate his work. We're going to sign off. Thank you again. Have a fabulous rest of your Saturday. Share the video, share the video, share the video. Much love, Brother Najee. Thank you, everybody. I see all the Wanda Hodge. Thank you, Pat Munson. Thank you, Adia Malika. Thank you, everybody who's giving him congratulations.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you. Peace.
Thank you.